Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I'm joined once again by Konstantinos from
Hey
Para
everyone.
Bellum, and we're going to be taking another look at the world of EA through the Para Bellum Spotlights. And this week's spotlight is an interesting one because it's about great explorers and their tales. And it opens up, like many of the spotlights do, interesting possibilities for the world as a whole. But you can never be entirely certain how much of it is genuine and how much of it has been made up by people who went 3 times around the Isle of Wight until everybody got seasick and then landed and told people they'd been away for months. So interesting that you've decided to expand via the Nords, but at the same time, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think so
Because
too.
as people often think about our Vikings, Viking was a trade or a term, not a people. So,
True.
if they were Vikings, they were raiding warriors, but the rest of the time they were explorers, they were farmers, they were craftsmen. So I like that the Nords have decided to explore the world as a whole and explore it to every cardinal compass point as well.
So there is a threefold reason why we went for this spotlight with the Nords, because while they are great explorers, like it is part of their culture to be, they are a sailing nation, a navy nation. They are not the only one.
Mhm.
So there are three reasons we went with them. First of all, because it showcases that the Nords are not like this one-dimensional culture that is all about war, only war, raiding. We've already showcased that survival is a big deal there because it is a very rough land to live. But we wanted to show that they have a culture, they have other interests than just raid and plunder and just staying alive. So it fit very well. It served that purpose very well because exactly as you said, like the Vikings are very well known as a caste of warriors because that's where the term comes from. But as a people or as the society they came from, the societies they came from, they were natural explorers, like sailing and was part of their very being in a way.
Mhm.
Like they mostly inhabited shores and the prime for similar reasons than they do in Mannheim, like the inlands were too harsh to live.
Mm.
Uh, that is one aspect. The second aspect is that we really wanted to showcase that there is more world out there. Uh, and it's something that we've talked about before or hinted at before. I think the appearance of the Sorcerer Kings makes this apparent now.
Mm.
Uh, but apart from the Sorcerer Kings, which are, I'll put it this way, the lands that are mentioned, especially by Inga,
Mhm.
are none of them are the Sorcerer Kings.
Okay.
So that is a second aspect, which was to we want to kind of let people in on the fact that there are a lot of other things there. Well, a lot and a lot. There are other things there. This isn't a one continent world.
Yeah.
Uh, things that will come in due time, and we will explore. Small plug-in here sooner than you'd expect, but
Okay. Tease you.
uh, I'll put it this way: possibly in 2023, we will see more
Okay.
of that stuff.
That's interesting because, like I say, the spotlight, it focuses on 4 great explorers, each of
Mhm.
which went in a different direction from
Yeah,
leaving Mannheim. And there are interesting ones. I mean, Inga more or less um, circumnavigated the globe, or,
true.
if you believe her mad tale that the world is a globe and not just a flat circle that we all know is carried on the back of a giant turtle.
I mean,
Um,
sorry, just sorry to interrupt, but
yeah.
that brings me to the third part, which was yes, we chose the Nords because as a civilization, they are very oral. They don't really put much stock into writing things down and
Mm,
having a written tradition and written history and stuff like that, which immediately, of course, especially after generations have passed, creates kind of a question around this uh, this witness. you
yes.
know, it is an possibly unreliable source, but and that is why we chose the Nords for this
Mm,
because we want to make sure that people know there are other stuff up there, but the details we would like to explore in a more kind of systematic and more careful approach when the time comes to showcase that, yeah, that weird thing Inga mentioned, this is what it truly is.
Yeah.
She didn't understand it completely, so why give a false impression? So we left it as an unreliable witness, giving that. And if we had used the city states, which are also a very naval nation, well, nations, uh, that unreliability wouldn't be as strong, because they do have a much more organized society. They do understand the concepts of actual history and
Yeah.
putting things down, and a scientific approach, maybe map making. So they wouldn't serve well for this purpose, that it was to tell you, yes, there are other things out there, and here are a few hints about what they could be,
Yeah.
but we'll explore them when in time.
Yeah, it's interesting then, because you have the I suppose the idea with the Nords that powerful leaders, the great explorers, want to make a name for themselves, and they come back, and it's whether or not their stories are believed. And you have that idea of, is it genuine, or has it been inflated for sort of saga sort of mentality behind it, to increase their stature in the eyes of the other Nords. And sometimes when 27 ships set off and one returns, but they tell a story of massive monsters and white furred beasts on two legs that tore them apart. But at the same time, it equally could have been, too far out to sea in a massive storm.
Yeah.
And just wreck them all and blew them off course. But you can't come back and tell a nation of explorers and sailors that you failed to sail through some bad weather. So yeah, the unreliable narrator sort of always comes to the fore.
I think that's what makes the Spotlight particularly interesting, that there's obviously some truth to that. Like, obviously, Inga discovered that this is a globe. I like to think that her first idea was actually the world is a ring.
Yes.
Because that fits the narrative of the Great World Serpent, essentially. Yeah. And it is very possible that's what she thought. No, I have proof. The world is a huge giant snake, and we're all sailing around it, and that's what we did, which makes sense from her point of view. But I think you and I and our audience can tell with some certainty that no, it's a globe. Yeah. Maybe not all of our audience, but I cannot help that. But
I have to say, as much as I enjoyed Inga and Harold's stories, which are probably the extremes of it, Ulrich's little tale, specifically his first tale, I really enjoyed. And I'm not going to get any further into that. People will have to go and read the Spotlight to see who Ulrich first encountered and where that story came from. But again, that one, you're looking at that and you're thinking, there's that, is it the unreliable narrator thing again? Or perhaps it's not. Perhaps there are tribes and peoples that are best left alone when you start exploring the forests.
Now, I will admit that is a detail that I wasn't the one to add. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, it might be a little too in your face. But I am a tremendous fan. I grew up with that specific reference. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to let it in, because it just speaks. It comes from me as well, even though I didn't write that part, but it comes from me as well. It's such a personal thing for me. I can quote things even now. So, yeah. I mean, that we can take that. Yeah, that didn't exactly happen.
Probably not. Probably not. But if it did, who knows where it will take us next? I can see people converting some models as well. See ogres carrying bits and pieces. But it's a whole beautiful world ahead of us. And also, once again, it hints at the expansion of the world, and therefore also the expansion of units and beasts and other such things. And one thing that I was thinking of when I was reading this was the possibility of, I don't want to say unaligned creatures, because it sort of sounds like anybody can take them. But I was thinking about wandering monsters, more or less, having something that can't be controlled by either side, rampaging into the middle of battlefields, and
chickens.
Yes, exactly, like the chicken.
Exactly.
Possibly not as violent as the chicken. Something a bit smaller, a bit tamer, like a titan, maybe. But it'd be interesting to see nature fighting back, or people having to explore, certainly for things like First Blood as well, having to fight in and around some of the creatures, their layers that get talked about in these spotlights, because it opens up a lot of gaming possibilities as well, especially if people, when they're playing with friends or with groups.
No comment.
To just, oh God, so close once again. Oh well.
No, I think this is. I think I can openly say that we've said from the beginning that we want the world of Conquest to be a gaming world with different aspects. We've already showcased this with the Last Argument of Kings and First Blood, which are two takes on a war game. I'll just mention here we have other plans, both as always involving miniatures. Miniatures is our thing. We love our minis. I guess maybe always, but primarily possibly involving miniatures, and we'll leave it at that. We have many plans, and they are closer, most of them, like we are a bit busy trying to bring a lot of different things to you in a very organized and well-approached manner. That's why we don't want to talk about things until we know we have a good, solid thing in our hands that we feel comfortable with and matches the level of quality that we are looking for in our products in general.
Well, I think we'll leave it at that, on that teasing note. If you haven't already been over to Para Bellum's website to check out the Spotlight, we'll pop the link below. Go and have a look at the Great Explorers and see if you can work out what we were talking about with Ulrich. And if you don't get the reference, then maybe it's something you can explore in your own time as well, because you really should.
I definitely recommend.
100% you should. We'll leave it there for now. As always, Konstantinos, it's been a pleasure.
Pleasure was mine.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.